Kaladeshapatra. The principles that we're trying to balance always remain common and are sacred. It's interesting how youth affects us. When my father and mother were young, they listened to a certain type of music. Now my father's 89 years old. He still listens to the music that he listened to when he was a teenager. Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, all those kinds of people. And his whole life he was doing that. My mother and all their friends and that whole generation. So when I was young, I was thinking, and all my friends and my generation, who wants to hear that stuff? You know, they're dressed like this and they're singing like this. And we had people with long hair and they hardly wore anything. It was a whole different sound, a whole different experience. And I was thinking my parents are just stuck in the mud of what they listened to in their teenage years, and our whole generation was thinking like that. But you know something? Now I'm 62. And I see thousands and thousands of people my age, and they listen to the same things that they listened to when they were teenagers. Same bands, same songs. You see the Rolling Stones, when they have a revival tour, 90% of the people are in their 60s. So, and I talk to young people, and they can't tolerate what their parents were into. So youth is a very, very deeply impressive part of our lives. It deeply influences. And there's different, with each generation, especially in this modern age, there's different priorities. An example in my own life again, my mother and father, they were brought up in the Great Depression of America. America was totally in poverty during the Great Depression. The unemployment rate, people didn't have jobs. My father had to leave school when he was about 14 years old, and he was earning about 5 cents a day. Just so the family could eat. That was the Great Depression. So they were brought up in that environment. But then there was prosperity in the 1950s after World War II. So I was brought up in that situation. And we were all, I remember myself and my whole generation, you know, kind of middle class. Why? We used to condemn our parents. Why are you so concerned with money all the time? Who cares about money? We didn't have to care about money. That's why we didn't care about money. But they were brought up in a different, where for survival they had to. So we have different impressions. Today, it's very, very crucial that we balance sacred principles. And that balance is universal. Ethics, morality, values of compassion, values of love, values of family, values of what is the purpose of life, should be harmonized, not one against the other. In one sense, a sadhu is one who walks away from the world for one's spiritual life. But my guru used to say, the reason a sadhu doesn't have a family is so that the sadhu could give his entire energy or her entire energy to the entire human family. So everyone in this room is a dynamic leader on some level in their lives and in the society itself. To balance morality with the necessities to go ahead in business or in studies. Students, sometimes in America especially, it's probably not much different in India these days. There's such a society of drugs, of sex, of totally reckless living. And yet you're there to study. How to balance being a part of that society without getting sucked into it. And I sometimes visit Indians' homes from cultured, orthodox, religious kinds of families who go to America for business. And while I'm there, they tell me their children who grow up in America. My daughter, she's 16 years old. She's pregnant. An Orthodox Hindu family from Andhra Pradesh, and their daughter, 16 years old, is pregnant. Obviously not married. What's happening? They're asking me what they should do. We have, by our own example, it's very important, because the parent's example is very, very influential on the children. You know, we may have our lives and our requirements for that life. We may have to earn prestige, we may have to earn wealth, for what we're doing. But if we have deep values, then our children, we have to present them these days in a non-judgmental way. Because if you're too judgmental, you lose them. They just retaliate, they rebel. All the things my parents tried to impress upon me that I rebelled against are foundational in my service to all of you, in the service of my Guru today. So it's important for us, toward our children, toward our employees, to whatever, to balance the necessity to instruct, even to discipline sometimes, with compassion. And in order for us to do that, we have to be balanced. The value of ethics, the value of morality, the value of giving time for our own inner spiritual growth is so very, very crucial. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji.
Honestly? Of course you're honest, but...
It does. It does. Questions keep coming up and one thing leads to another thing.
The most important thing we could give to our children is an example, because that lasts forever in their life. Love is shown by sacrifice. If they show that we're willing to make sacrifices for the well-being of others, they will value that and be wonderful people. Yes, one more question and then we might.
In continuation with this about the children, the time these days the children spend outside of home and the influence they get out of home because of the class, because of the pressure of studies, sometimes gives them, the example that one would like to lead them. Or in earlier times, I remember in my earlier age when I was a youth, the time that we would actually spend at home was much more than what we also allow our children right now. We burden them, probably the environment has burdened them with so many extracurricular activities and sports and everything. So that influence, and to do it really becomes a sort of a, that leading by example sometimes fails sometimes.
Some things are beyond our controls and some things are within our control. In today's world, some of the things our children do is just out of our control. Because when you're little children, some things are within our control. But once they become teenagers and older, you can't really stop them very much. And even if you try, they'll just sneak around you. Yes? But one thing that is within our control is the experience they have when they are at home. And that will have a major effect on the values that they hold sacred in their lives. It's been a great honor and a great pleasure to spend this time with you. Thank you very, very much.